What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and today I'm going to be introducing you to a guy by the name of John. John, real pleasure to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you as well.
Me and John first became aware of each other, or I first became aware of you via Facebook, through the After Prison Facebook page, and you had actually left me a message. And when me and you first began speaking, I heard about what you had been through, your story of getting locked up, someone who had never been locked up before. And John's story is probably one of the craziest that we have ever featured here on After Prison Show. And I want to first start by saying thank you for allowing us to come and visit with you to see all that this guy has going on. But also thank you for being willing to share your story. I truly feel like this is one that a lot of people are going to find really crazy.
I appreciate you coming out all the way out to Prince William, Virginia to speak with me today.
John, I'd like to start with just this crazy story of what happened when you got locked up, what you got locked up for. But before we even get to that, let's give a little bit of background about who you are. Because prior to the situation that would lead to you getting locked up, you had never been in trouble before.
Correct. I'm actually a one of 5 kids to a single mother. All of us went to college. We were successful. Got divorced in 2007, became a single dad of a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old daughter at the time, and decided to move to Virginia to start a new life together as a family of 3. So we moved into our townhouse in Fairfax, Virginia, and I worked for a company, was doing great. Then I purchased me and my 3 daughters. This is a couple years down the road, obviously. They were a little older, like 8 and 11. Purchased tickets, was all excited. We were going to take them to Disney World. Financially, I got laid off. Couldn't afford to take them for the trip. Put them up for sale on Craigslist, and someone responded. I responded back. Decided to meet them at a local parking lot. I pulled into the parking lot and immediately got surrounded by about 8 to 10 black Suburbans. Got yanked out of the car and charged with 6 felonies of obtaining money under false pretenses because I was not a legal ticketer.
I told y'all, when I heard this, I absolutely could not believe this. John, an individual who has never been in trouble before, a family man, you wanted to take your kids to Disney World, you bought these tickets, couldn't afford to do so because you got laid off, put the tickets up on Craigslist, which is probably something that anybody would do, and then end up getting swatted. I mean, legitimately. I mean, you got swatted attempting to sell these tickets. You didn't have no idea that what you were doing was something that I guess obviously was illegal.
I actually thought it was a joke. When they brought me to the interrogation room, they said, what did you do? Did you do this? And I'm like, you got me. Red-handed, I sold you Disney World tickets. I thought the whole ordeal was a joke.
Now, why would you think it was a joke? Because you told me a little bit about that as well. You knew somebody in the police department?
I know some people who work in the police department. Not that police department, but in a police department. And I had assumed that they had set something up as a joke, because what's the chances of being arrested selling your own Disney World tickets? Matter of fact, that person came to court because they didn't believe me. That person that I knew who is a police officer came to court because they didn't believe me. They were like, nah, what did you did something stupid. What did you do? I said, I'm telling you, I sold Disney World tickets. The court was pushed so far back that it got to the point that financially I couldn't afford my attorney anymore. So I went with a pro bono attorney, and I got to learn the whole ordeal of how that works.
John, and forgive me for cutting you off, but there's some key facts that I want to throw into this as well. You wouldn't just get charged with like 1 count of obtaining money under false pretenses. You would end up catching, 6 felonies?
So the reason I ended up catching 6 is I had 6 tickets, but they didn't get me 6 felonies all at once. When they first arrested me, they charged me with 2. My girlfriend at the time, I did have 3 daughters at the time. My youngest was a baby. But my girlfriend followed me to the police station while I went in the cop car. She bonded me out for something like $2,500 cash. And by the time we got home, They were waiting for me to arrest me again. They decided to charge me with 4 felonies. Then I got home, spent the night, and the next morning we heard and they decided they were going to charge me then with 6 felonies, that they were able to charge me for 1 for every ticket that I was trying to sell. So I had to bond out 3 times.
So they arrested you every single time that they enhanced the charges?
Correct.
I know there's going to be some people who are hearing this who think that this is too crazy to believe in. And I understand that as well, because when I first heard this, I thought the same thing. The craziest part about this, though, is we haven't even gotten to the craziest part. Because now I want you to explain, if you would, what you learned about dealing with that court-appointed representation.
So I was told by the court-appointed attorney that if I plead guilty to the felonies, that I would not ever step foot in jail again. And at the time, I've never been arrested, never had anything on my record. So the thought of going to prison or jail scared the heck out of me, because
you've never been before.
I have never been before, and 2 of those daughters have nobody but me. Their mom's in Michigan, so they depended on me. So I just took it to think, okay, I'll just deal with it as long as I don't have to be away from my family. So I took the felony, and I think it was a month later was sentencing. They sentenced me to 3 months, 9 months in a state penitentiary. Bam. I turned and looked at my attorney and said, "What does that mean?" He said, "It'll go by fast." Looked at the district attorney, I believe they're called. The prosecutor, and said, "What's for lunch?" And they walked out together as the bailiff came and took me to the back.
Now, you said you got sentenced to 3 months, 6 months, and state penitentiary time. How much time were you sentenced to in total?
It was 3 years, 6 months in a state penitentiary.
Oh, 3 years, 6 months.
Correct.
For your lawyer to sit there and tell you, hey, look, you got nothing to worry about. You're going to plead guilty. Here's your plea. You're never going to get locked up for this. You don't have anything on your record whatsoever. And then to step foot into that sentencing and to learn that you're getting sentenced to almost 4 years in prison. And
my heart dropped.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And forgive me, I should ask that question. Like, what was that like? What was it like when you heard that you had gotten sentenced to almost 4 years in prison?
My heart dropped. First thing I thought about was my kids. I mean, my daughters that depend on me. I was a single dad. I was with somebody, but I was a single dad, and she was waiting in the car. I told her not to bother parking. I'm going in to get probation. I needed her to drive me around to the probation office. So I get back to the back holding area and had to call her collect, and I said things didn't go my way. And actually the funny thing is, we talk about it now, she said, "What did you get?" I said, "It's not that bad. I'm going to be here for a while. I'll let you know." Because I wasn't about to tell her I got almost 4 years.
Right.
I knew in my mind there's no way I could do 4 years. At the time I didn't. I'm a believer. I just knew that there was no way I was going to have to sit there for 4 years as my kids had to go back to their mom and be abused. They're not in a good situation at their mom's house. So I knew that there was no way. So I met a gentleman while I was inside who is in on a charge for drugs, and he told his attorney my situation. His attorney, again, like you said, couldn't believe what I was in there for. Said, "Wait a minute, what?" He pulled my paperwork and then immediately took me pro bono. So this attorney was able to go to the judge and kind of like appeal my sentence, and was able to get me 3 years of probation, 9 months of incarceration, and an ankle bracelet for house arrest. However, in Fairfax County, house arrest is $800 a month. I had already been incarcerated for 60 days, and my girlfriend had lost her job. Nobody was paying the rent. I got a job at Applebee's as a waiter. We all know you can't. This is Fairfax. We can't survive as a waiter with a family of 6. So I paid our rent up ahead of my bracelet, fell behind $400 on my bracelet, talked to my counselor who had told me that you're fine. We'd see him every Sunday to make the payment, tell him how everything was going. And I saw him on Sunday, told him I was shy because I paid the rent, and what I was doing is making sure my rent was paid off for the whole time that I was incarcerated, just in case something happened. So he told me I was fine. The following Sunday, if I could make up the difference, I told him I would. The following day on Monday, I hear
John, you get a
my
lot
door.
of knocks on your door.
I know. And we all know what the knock sounds like. It's not a regular knock. It's a whole...
It's not an Amazon delivery.
It's not Amazon. So they come with the black Suburban and said, come with us. They charged me with an inside crime, because when you're incarcerated, you get charged with a crime.
You got an institutional charge.
Correct. Of theft of $400. The person who charged me was another sheriff. They gave me 90 days in the hole, which at the time meant you're naked for 23 hours a day.
Naked.
And you get fed regular food on Sundays, and you get fed a loaf, which nobody really can eat for the remainder days. Only get fed on Sunday, basically, because that's the only thing I ate on Sundays. The guy next to my cell was a murderer. He got more time out, and he was able to smash a sandwich every now and then and slide it under my door because he felt bad. During that 90 days, I get a letter in the mail saying my ex-wife took my kids. I'm not able. Now, reminder: when you're in solitary
isolation.
confinement, you get no phone calls out, no letters out. So all you can get is letters in. So I get this letter that my ex-wife took my kids. She's like, ha, 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 laughing in it, because, you know, that's how our ex-wives work.
I don't know, so I hope I never have to.
So she got the kids, and immediately when I got out of the isolation, they take you and reclassify you. So now I'm in the old part of the jail with the murderers. And, oh my gosh, they were the nicest guys. Because I had been so malnourished that I was now about 110, 130 pounds. Now you see I've eaten since.
You look like you've gotten back, John.
Yes. They actually gave me their commissary, and you know how that means to these people. So commissary is like a $5 ramen noodle. So they gave me some of their commissary to help me eat because I was lightheaded. I'd gotten so thin by being in there 90 days and eating on Sundays. I started going to the law library immediately because my mindset was get them kids. I knew I had a certain amount of months left. Call and collect to my girlfriend, seeing how things are going on that house, and going back and forth. She's got an eviction notice. She's getting nervous. I'm getting towards the 30 days and I'm out counting down. Matter of fact, my nickname was Disney when I was in there.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about that real quick. You know, everybody's got a nickname while locked up. John's was Disney, and I'm guessing that was because of the Disney tickets.
Yeah, they just nobody believed me until the guard finally came and was like, he's telling us he's here for Disney tickets.
John, there's a lot of things that you've mentioned right now. You've ran through your story very quickly, and I appreciate you for doing so. I'm sure the viewers will as well, but I want to go back to just a few key things before we continue. And first, let's talk about what you said about this guy that you met when you first got locked up, who was locked up for drug charges, and he introduced you to his lawyer. This is almost like a situation that was fate, because it was fate that you ran across this guy who had a good lawyer, who took a liking to your case because it was so crazy. And when you mentioned that he went back to court to fight for you, you weren't aware that this was happening. You wouldn't find out about this until you were actually being released.
Correct. I had no clue that he went to bat for me because I never stepped foot in the courtroom. He took care of it all, the paperwork, everything. The next thing I was aware of is the fact that I needed to find somebody to put the $800 deposit down. They grabbed me from the cell, brought me to the work release center, which nobody knows until they have been incarcerated what it feels like to put your real clothes on. They put my real clothes on. I was almost like,
you're getting out of
I'm
here.
at peace. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a person again.
But you still didn't really have any idea
how everything happened. I had no clue. And a matter of fact, this gentleman who I met who introduced me to this attorney is a really good friend of mine, and he owns a graphics design company that does all my graphics for me now.
They let you out on house arrest, $800 a week. And I'm not sure how much, $800 a month. I'm not sure how much it costs down in Chesapeake or in Tidewater where we're at, but I know it's expensive. And up here where you are, up in Fairfax, I told a prison story not too long ago about a guy I was locked up with who was from Fairfax, and I used to make fun of him even though he was a really good guy and someone I considered a friend, but I said, you're from Fairfax, that's Ferrari dealership land. There's a Ferrari dealership here, right?
It's like 4 miles up the road.
But I mentioned that to say that it's not cheap up here. The cost of living is extensive.
The cost of living here is equal to California, is what they say. We're equal, if not a little higher.
Really?
Is what they're going on the internet right now when you look.
So not only do you have to deal with the high cost of living up here, you also have to deal with this $800 a month in the house arrest, and you wouldn't be able to make that house arrest payment, and they would lock you up again. You would end up doing 90 days in isolation. And another thing that I've heard that I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure you can elaborate on this, is Fairfax County Jail is nowhere that you ever want to be locked up anyways. I've heard it's a pretty horrible place.
Fairfax County Jail is actually a high security jail. They don't have bars. It's complete steel doors
yeah.
with a little glass window that they can shut.
And they probably do quite often. I've heard they lock down quite a bit. Even when you're in population, they spend a lot of time on lockdown.
Correct. Especially once I got to the older section.
So you're going to the old section, probably like the dungeon of this jail.
I got the full tour of the jail. I started at the new side, then I went to the hole. Then I went to house arrest, then I went to the hole, then I went to the old section. So I kind of got my whole tour. I'm good to go.
You're not looking to go back anytime soon?
No, I'm 100% good to go. I actually dealt with a little PTSD.
Absolutely.
And I talked to a lot of guys who have, as well as the fact that I got out, put a car in my name, and learned a quick lesson of don't do that. Because I got pulled over so many times with them just to mess with me because they saw I just got out and I had 6 felonies. So I was in Fairfax driving, and I had my daughters with me in the car, and I hear over the PA, "Mr. Chapman, put your hands outside the window, open your door, step backwards with your hands clasped, and walk back." I walk back. I get to the back. He talks to me for a while. Didn't know what I did wrong. He tells me to make a right-hand turn over here, turn into the plaza. Thought, that's weird. If you were going to do something, why are you going to let me get back in my car to drive? So he has me pull in the drive, get back out of the car, comes back out, says, "We're going to have lunch. I just thought I'd tell you to have a safe day and drive safe with your kids." As an ex-offender, I was done. I went home. My PTSD was kicking. I was supposed to have a meeting that day. I actually called out sick. My kids were crying. They thought I was going to jail. I had just got them back. And so, as somebody who's an ex-offender, that's not a joke.
No. Yeah, and it could definitely, me personally, I've been home for 3 years now, a little bit over 3 years, and even when I see the police, I might laugh and joke about, "Oh, there go the police," yeah. But I definitely still get that. You definitely still get that uneasy feeling. Something else that I want to talk about that you had mentioned was while you were in isolation, your ex-wife would take your kids again. You couldn't send any mail out. You're sitting in a cell butt naked for most of the day. I can imagine the only time that you're putting clothes on is if they let you out for that 1 hour a day. But you received this letter, your ex-wife is taking your kids. You would do something pretty extraordinary while you were in isolation in an attempt to get your kids back after you got released.
Correct. I actually started visiting the law library, and I actually put together my whole case. And I put together my whole case as Exhibit A, B, C, D. And I would, later on, when I was released, I had placed my whole case together. I would go to the homeless shelter, and they would pay for a bus for me to get to Michigan, because while I was incarcerated, I had already had already mailed the courts in Michigan to set a court date.
But you mentioned something really important right there. The homeless shelter would pay for your transportation to go fight for your kids in this other state while locked up. And throughout the course of everything that took place after you got arrested for these Disney tickets, you lost everything.
I lost everything. I didn't even tell you that I literally lost everything. I get put into we'll go back to me getting out of the isolation, I get into the regular general population, and I'm about to get out. I'm like 15 days from getting out. I make a collect call to my girlfriend, and she's crying hysterically. She's being evicted. The police are there. They're throwing all her stuff out of the house. As a man, the feeling that you feel that I can't do anything.
You're helpless. I'm
helpless. She's crying hysterically, begging me to. She knows I can't do anything, but she's begging me to talk to him on the phone. I'm talking to him, and then all the phone, your 15 minutes is up. Done. Click. That was the last day that I talked to her until I got out. When I got released at midnight on February the 10th, I didn't know who was going to be out there for me because I hadn't talked to her. I didn't know where we were. I knew she was upset, obviously. We were lost. She was sitting out there in an older truck because they actually had towed my van away because my registration, I had a van that was only 2 years old but paid for. The association towed my van away. By the time I was released, they had sold it. So I literally lost everything over Disney tickets. Next time, I'll give them away.
You know, John, I want to say this real quick, and I want to keep this very serious with you. Yeah. It's almost hard to do because it is so comical and so crazy, and with everything that you went through because of this experience. But the fact that you're able to look back on it now and where you are right now, which is where we're getting ready to get to, is in such a better place. It's almost like you had to go through all of that to get to where you are now. But the fact that you're able to sit here and to laugh at this.
I am able to laugh at it now. I have done interviews in the past for different organizations where I broke down because I lost my kids. I can lose a house, I can lose a car, but when I lost my kids, I went crazy in there. If you're thinking about being in a 5x5 cell, you can't access the outside, but you got a letter in saying your ex-wife took your kids from you, and if you know any of the backstory about it, I was broken. That broke me. All of the rest of it, I did what I had to do. But when I got that letter, I was broken. It literally broke me to the fact that even today I have anxiety. I got out on a Friday. On Saturday, I was on a bus on Michigan, on my way to Michigan. It took me, it's only a 10.5-hour ride. It took me 23.5 hours on a bus. Because I did.
Greyhound makes a lot of stops along the way.
Oh, yeah. So I get there, I get to Michigan, then I had a 4.5-mile walk to get to the courthouse. I get to the court about 45 minutes before court started. She has her attorney there. I have no attorney. I just have my paperwork I put together. I sit in the courtroom and she says, "But Your Honor, he just got out of jail." The judge said, "Mr. Chapman, did you break out of jail?" Just as a comical to my ex-wife. And you don't hear this very often. But I said, "No, Your Honor." And he said, "Then Mrs. Chapman," because he wanted to get on her nerves, she's remarried, but he calls her that anyway. "I don't want to hear about that. He paid his debt to society. Only by the grace of God did that happen. He gave me my kids back that day."
Because of the work that you put in, because of the casework that you put in while you were locked up.
Correct. I had my case better than her attorney had her case. I had, like I said, I had Exhibit 1 and I had a picture. Exhibit 2 and I had a picture. And of everything we've gone through and why I wanted kids back and why she couldn't have my kids. And I had everything set up. So when I gave it in and I mailed in my package to the court, the judge was just in awe because I did that all from
while being locked up
in the law library.
Yeah. John, your story gets a little more in depth now and a little more hard hitting right now, as if it hasn't already been. But you would get your kids back. That was what you wanted to accomplish. However, the battle was far from won because now you have custody of your children, but again, you have nothing.
Yes. So from there, we took a bus back to Virginia, where I had no place to go. I get into the Patrick Henry shelter of Fairfax, which is a family shelter. They were a true blessing. I was so scared to get in. Matter of fact, I didn't show up for my first interview because the first thing I thought about is that I'm gonna catch a charge, because if somebody touches my daughters, I do everything for my kids. I thought of a shelter as a bunch of little beds everywhere. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna sleep with one eye open because nobody's gonna touch my kids, because you never know who's laying next to you. And so I get enough courage to get my kids over to this shelter, and I actually was blessed because what it was a room about the size of this office that had one wall with a kitchenette and then bunk beds. So we got our own room that locked. There were times before I got into the shelter that I would buy my kids McDonald's with the little bit of money I had, And it was, we joke around about it now, but at the time it wasn't very funny. But I would tell my kids, and my daughter remembers, my oldest. Oh, she'd be like, Dad, how come you didn't get nothing? And I didn't want to tell her. I didn't have money. I bought you guys your Happy Meals. I had $7 on me. They would be finished and go to throw out their food, and I'd be like,
man, John.
So
you talk about you've broken down during some interviews in the past. I mean, it's gut-wrenching, the story that you've been through. You went through so much behind something so stupid, something that nobody should ever have to even worry about. Who the hell would think that some Disney World tickets would lead to just this domino effect of absolute devastation in somebody's life?
The detective that actually arrested me told me it was my own bad luck because they were on Craigslist looking.
Just for anything?
They were just looking through Craigslist listings. And actually, so that everybody knows, as of 2018 of August, it is now no longer illegal to sell Disney World tickets.
But you can't get that time back. You can't get this entire experience back. You went through a messed up experience, and it is what it is. Just like you said, 2018, it's no longer illegal. They can't take back what they did to you. You can never get that back. However, your story, and I've told you this, and you told me that many people have told you this as well, it's almost like that Will Smith movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. You're a single father, you're homeless, you're taking your last $7 to buy your kids Happy Meals, and you would end up in this homeless shelter. John, let's talk about the very beginning of the next chapter of your life, this absolute redemption, and where we're sitting right now.
So originally what happened when I was in the shelter is I got to tell this story because was a true blessing. I literally take my last $20 that a church had given me and put it in gas and go for a job interview at a pest control company. I meet the most amazing gentleman who interviewed me, and we all know you have to read your interview on what you want to tell somebody, but he's actually my best friend now.
Emphasize a little deeper about that. You said you have to read your interview.
So this is the question we laugh about. I said, I bet you wish you never asked. He asked me, how bad do you need a job? Well, I'm homeless, I'm in a shelter, and I'm a single dad. All these things are not necessarily hireable things. You see me as a failure. I have felonies. I'm a single parent, so if my kids are sick, I'm a single parent. You have to decide if you should tell these things or if you shouldn't. Well, I read this guy and I went ahead and told him, I said, I need this job so bad that I'll sleep here because I'm homeless with my daughters. And actually, I've had 3 daughters at this time. I told him everything. And he hires me. He's like, John, I want to offer you the job. I want you to start on Monday. This is Friday. And we talked for 2 hours about my situation. Well, finally, I'm about to leave, and I put my foot in the door as he's about to shut. I said, I have one last thing, and I'm embarrassed to ask. I don't have gas to get to work. This man takes me back into his office and said, do you have some time? I said, I have all the time in the world. I'm homeless. I need to do whatever I need to do. This man takes me up to the Ford dealer and buys an F-150. Not in my name, but in the company's name nonetheless, but makes me a manager so that he could give me a gas card that day. I drove home to the shelter with a brand new pickup truck with a gas card. And the shelter manager is like, how did it go? I said, you tell me. Because finally I felt like somebody was helping me.
I mean, that's a lot of help right there, John.
So he hired me as a manager, and he hired me for ridiculous money, for just coming out. I worked for him for about 2 years until he left the company and moved to Texas. And so I decided that I would leave the company myself because it was different management, different owner, wasn't the same. Left the company, went to work for a nonprofit food pantry. And
you left a $90,000 a year job to go work at a food pantry?
Correct, for $50,000. I took a kind of a cut.
A huge cut, half.
A huge cut. I had saved up quite a bit of money because being homeless, you learn to be frugal. Let me backtrack a little bit actually, because I couldn't find a home because my credit was messed up. And I had a homeless shelter, and they were willing to put first month in security down, but that doesn't mean nothing if you've only been on the job for a week. This man co-signed for me.
For a place to live.
Yes. He co-signed for my family to have a house and told them for 1 year, if I did not pay a payment, call them, and he would make the payment for me for 1 year. He guarantees it.
You met a true savior. This man saved your life. He saved your family's life.
Correct.
He would end up leaving the company. You would go elsewhere. You know, what happens to the relationship when he leaves the company and you do as well?
He travels from Texas to come here to see us on a regular. My daughter is now going to be turning 16 in June. He's coming for her 16th birthday party. So we're still really close friends. He actually is very interested in quitting his job where he's at there, moving here and working for Johnny Appleseed.
Which is the foundation that you are now the president of. Let's get to that. All right, because now the story is about to take a major turn for the better. Like, when you talk about a redemption story from a situation that should have never happened, John, you are absolutely that.
Thank you. I started working for this nonprofit food pantry, and it was every Friday. It was like, hey, how you doing? Give me 5. Hey, how you doing? Give me 5. And everybody's helping. I'm talking to the director at the time. I'm like, why don't we get these guys trained? I had my building license since I was in high school. So I went through building trades, got my building license, and I started talking to the director of that nonprofit food pantry. I'm like, listen, instead of just bandaging these people, and I'm not saying that there's not a place for food pantries. There definitely is. There's people that need food. But why don't we train these guys, get them to work? Well, she wasn't interested in doing that. I literally ended up leaving them and starting at zero with my savings. What I did at the time is I took my tax money and I bought a party bus, and nobody understood what I was doing. Everybody was like,
party buses are big business, John.
You quit your job at making $90,000, then you quit your $50,000, you buy a party bus. I go to Home Depot, I explain what I want. I want them to tear this party bus apart and turn it into a classroom, because I could not afford an office. We all know it's expensive. So
especially here in Fairfax.
We're talking at least $3,000 a month, and that's a square little small spot. So I turn this party bus into a classroom and start training. I'm a mobile school.
Where are you doing your training at? Where are you finding individuals? Talk about the locations where you would travel with this bus.
I would travel to low-income areas. I would partner with Fairfax County. I would partner with other nonprofits. We laugh about me having, my family laughs, I have PTSD to police. I partner with the police. And you don't know how hard it is, or maybe you do, to partner with the police after you've gone through such a scenario.
I honestly don't know, but I can only imagine.
Matter of fact, Fairfax County Police want me to go into the jail and do classes.
I have to cut you off, and I have to ask this question. You've partnered with the police, the
Correct.
Fairfax police, the same police who locked you up for these tickets. Was there any type of like hostility, any kind of like feelings like, you guys?
I partner with every police department other than them originally.
Oh, really? So you work
to
around
them? It wasn't until I got my office. I never told anybody my story until I was established.
So nobody knew what you had been through. Nobody knew the nickname Disney.
Correct. Nobody knew about me having felonies or anything when I first started this, except for the gentleman at Fairfax County that helped me start it.
And that wasn't anything wrong that you were doing. Nobody was asking and you weren't telling.
Exactly. I just wasn't letting everybody know at first. I was nervous that it would affect the way they looked at the company. And then I started talking to people and clients, students, and they were loving the fact that I was them. I've been there.
You could relate. You've been through a situation similar to what some of them have probably been through, and look at you now. And this organization, let's also throw this in here, is the Johnny Appleseed Foundation.
Correct. It's the Johnny Appleseed Association. The reason I named it Johnny Appleseed Association is my name is John Chapman. If you Google John Chapman, that is Johnny Appleseed.
Is it really?
Correct. I actually was, friends of mine in school used to call me Johnny Appleseed, joking around once we learned in elementary school, Mr. Appleseed. And so I was like, when I was opening up a company, originally, mind you, I was an ex-offender. I didn't want it to be the John Chapman Foundation. I didn't want nobody looking up anything. When I partnered with Fairfax County, they want us to bring our classes inside. They want us to come to their Fairfax County Resource Fair. I do not mind doing that. I personally do not step foot into Fairfax County Jail.
Because of the emotional distress.
I have a major anxiety attack. I have major issues with it. I try, but I can't get to I'm not there yet. I have my staff go into the resource fair. The weird part is I have no problem walking in and out of Coffeewood, which is a prison.
It's just that one particular place, that one particular memory, or the many terrible memories from that place. John, I want to ask you this. How long has it been since the Disney tickets to where you are right now? How many years has it been?
9 years. And it still affects me mentally with the PTSD. I have anxiety. You're driving down the street, and I tell guys all the time, it's normal when they come out and tell me the same thing. You're driving down the street and you may have the same thing. Cop pulls behind you, I make a right turn. I'm not doing anything wrong. Everything's legal.
Yeah.
I make a right turn.
Just get out of the way.
Just get out the way. I've met some really awesome guys who are officers, but I met, unfortunately, the wrong ones when I was inside. And so they really messed with my emotions, with, like I said, the anxiety. I think it's everything all together that I went through, not necessarily just that. But I had a horrible experience. When you look up what United States made the prison system for, it was supposed to be
for rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation. Unfortunately, a lot of people learn new things to do.
It's just punishment.
Inside. It's punishment.
It's a crime school. It's basically what it is.
Exactly.
And when you talk about rehabilitation, I don't think there's any better form of that. Not what you're finding on the inside so much. I mean, they do have programs here and there. Resources are limited on the inside. But when you think about rehabilitation, John, what you've created here with this Johnny Appleseed Association, this is the absolute epitome of rehabilitation. You're giving guys now, from where you started to where you are right now, an opportunity to learn a skill, learn a trade, and be able to stand a way better chance of getting a decent job with a good wage.
Correct. So what we did is we opened up a fully accredited trade school. We teach people to be electricians, plumbers, HVAC technicians, maintenance, building maintenance, and we're getting ready to launch culinary.
Culinary?
Yes.
I just want to throw this out here, John. You have a huge space here. You've got so much room. Boy, we could be doing cooking videos here, John. Prison cooking from the Johnny Appleseed Association. This cooking video on After Prison Show is brought to you by. All jokes aside, that was not very funny. You're doing a lot of things here. You've got a class that's going on right now. We got a chance to look at that just a little bit. But let's talk about this one particular word that you just mentioned. Accredited. You opened up this fully accredited thing. I don't think that was as easy to do as you just say.
No, it actually took me 2.5 years to get accredited. You have to, in order to get accredited or funded, you have to show them that you're a successful program. In order to be a successful program, you have to run the program. In order to run the program, you have to pay your trainer to train the students.
It's all a full circle. Every part needs the other part. So, John, you are doing just amazing things, and you're helping so many people as well. How long have you been operational at this location right here?
This location right here, we just got blessed with, it's about 15,000 square foot.
Which is about the size of a small mall or a police station.
Station.
Or a jail. This thing is huge.
Thank you. It was a true blessing of ours. A good friend of mine really was looking out and loved what we were doing and wanted to help and was able to provide us with the building at a reduced rate. It's been an amazing walk of faith. And I really believe that the reason all this happened is to get me to do this for a living, because I was that same person out in the world that said, he broke the law. What is he complaining about?
You didn't know until you experienced it for yourself. There was no sympathy, it is what it is.
And now I realize that once you get caught, because I went through what I went through, that it isn't once it's done, you're forgiven. You did your time. The way it was set up originally is you do your time, you paid your debt to society once you did your time. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how, if you read our Constitution, that's how it was supposed to be. You do your time, you paid your debt to society, you move on. Unfortunately, we have a cloud hovering over us, and what Johnny Appleseed does for you is not only trades you to be an electrician, plumber, in the skilled trades and help you place you to work, but we help you lift that cloud, because what was holding a lot of people back, including myself, is I felt like a failure.
You give guys encouragement, not only the trade, the camaraderie. I saw the classroom over there. There's like 6 or 8 guys in these classes, very small classes. I imagine these guys have a bond. These guys get along.
We do one-on-one. We help them. I tell them my story. We joke around. We high-five. We get their morality up again. Believe in themselves. We had a gentleman speak at one of our graduations who said the only thing that was stopping him was himself, because nobody was there to tell him he could do it. And he had messed up from the time he was a kid, and once he get in the system, we all know.
It's a revolving door. It's a domino effect. Just as your story chronicles, just as your story signifies, it's not just you got some charges, you're going to jail. Everything can absolutely come undone, as it did for you,
Crumbled.
as it's done for me, as it's done for countless others, probably individuals who are in this class right now. And it is an absolute fight for life to get back to a place of normalcy.
Literally, I tell the guys, because I partner with prisons, we do the classes inside the prisons. So right before their pre-release, we do the classes, they get certified, they get out, we get them to work. I said, why wait? Now my next thing that we're doing is we're partnering with the high schoolers, so it's the guys that aren't headed to college, the guys who are headed to jail. Because we all know if you don't keep busy.
Idle hands is the devil's playground. I read a piece of paper when I was in school, and this is neither here nor there, but it said, high school dropouts are 60% more likely to get locked up. I said, yeah, right, I'm dropping out tomorrow. Literally like a month later, I was going to jail for the first time. So I've seen that personally for myself. John, real quick, as we wrap this up, talk about how a person gets involved with this organization. If there's somebody who's in this local area who's never heard about this and is seeing this for the first time, or maybe somebody who wants to do some work with you, maybe a sponsor, anything like that, how does somebody find out more information about the Johnny Appleseed Foundation or Association?
You could either find us on Facebook at JASA space INC, or you can go to our website, jasainc.org.
Well, John, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to sit with us, the hospitality for allowing us to come up here and see just this. I'm blown away by everything. Not only your backstory, I mean, that's just one thing in itself that's completely crazy, but what you got going on here, a 15,000 square foot basic fortress where you guys are just able to do so much good in the local community, and for you to actually be giving back after you went through a situation where you lost everything. John, it's an absolute pleasure to get a chance to meet you, to see all of this, and I look forward to talking with you again, doing a follow-up and seeing what After Prison Show could do in terms of working with you, helping you, or how the Johnny Appleseed Association could do vice versa for us.
Definitely, it was a pleasure meeting with you today as well. Thank you.
You look like you might be one of the youngest people in the class.
Yeah, I'm only 19.
19 years old, man, and look at you in here trying to get you a trade, and that's got to be a really motivating thing for you.
Yeah, trying to get some money.
Damn right, because if you try to go somewhere around here without no experience, they ain't gonna pay you nothing. But what is like the going rate for somebody who comes into a job? What's the starting rate with the information that these guys could take?
In this area, for an apprentice that's coming onto a job, just coming out of this school, green, you're looking anywhere from between $12 and $18 an hour.
Hey, you got a spot? Can I ball it out? See you later, you two.